The drill's teeth whined, chewing through the asteroid's dense crust as miners in bulky suits scrambled to steady the equipment. Dust and debris floated in the low-gravity environment, but something unusual halted the operation. Beneath the rock, a deep blue glow pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. The foreman, Eric Cost, wiped his visor in disbelief. "What the hell is that?" he muttered. Moments later, a crackling signal erupted from their comms, distorting voices and causing the instruments to spike. Cast cursed and ordered the team to stand back, but curiosity outweighed caution. One miner, impatient and bold, chipped away at the glowing rock with a plasma cutter. The moment the shard was exposed, the asteroid trembled as if alive. A wave of energy surged outward, knocking the crew off their feet and briefly shutting down their ship's systems. By the time power returned, the shard rested in plain view, a crystalline structure about the size of a forearm, radiating an otherworldly aura. The rescue team wasn't far behind. Dr. Uria Vega arrived hours later, her shuttle docking at the colony's staging platform. She was an anomaly among Apex Dynamics' corporate scientists, sharp-witted and fiercely independent, with no love for bureaucracy. Uria had spent years studying anomalous materials across the solar system, but nothing had prepared her for this. The shard sat in a sealed containment chamber, its glow hypnotic even through the reinforced glass. As she approached, her instruments began to hum. The radiation wasn't dangerous, at least not conventionally, but the energy spectrum was unlike anything she had ever seen. "Dr. Vega," Eric Cost greeted her, his voice uneasy. "We don't know what we've got here. Weird stuff's been happening since we dug it out. My men are hearing voices, seeing things, and that pulse." He pointed toward the shard, his hand trembling. "It's alive, isn't it?" Arya frowned, pulling out her analyzer. "No," she replied, though her tone lacked conviction. "It's emitting a signal. If it's alive, it's on a level we can't comprehend." As she scanned the shard, the readings grew erratic. Fragments of data filled her visor, frequencies spiking and collapsing, patterns that felt almost intentional. Then, for a split second, she saw something impossible. A vision. Earth, wreathed in fire and shadow. A colossal, metallic structure hung in orbit, its surface crawling with alien machinery. In the background, faint and spectral, was the image of a crystalline form, identical to the shard, but far larger. Arya staggered backward, her heart pounding. "What is it?" Cost asked, alarmed. She didn't answer. For the first time in her career, Arya Vega felt truly out of her depth. "I need to run tests," she finally managed. But deep down, she knew the shard wasn't just a discovery, it was a warning, and whatever had sent it was paying attention. "Let me know if you'd like me to continue." The unease among the mining crew grew as the shard's effects spread like ripples in a pond. By the third day after its extraction, the colony was abuzz with whispers of strange occurrences. Eric Cost was the first to openly report a vision, though he recounted it hesitantly, as if saying it aloud would make it real. "I saw my daughter," he told Arya during a tense briefing. "She was older, grown, standing in a city I didn't recognize, but I could feel it wasn't Earth." His voice cracked. "She told me I'd never see her again if I stayed." Arya jotted down his words, though her own hands weren't steady. Her equipment continued to pick up inexplicable phenomena, energy surges, gravitational distortions, and faint bursts of electromagnetic activity that seemed to mimic brainwaves. People weren't hallucinating, the shard was interacting with them. The visions, however, were inconsistent. Some saw idyllic futures, humanity thriving among the stars. Others saw devastation, Earth consumed by alien forces, entire colonies vanishing into black voids. It wasn't long before Apex Dynamics tightened its grip. Corporate enforcers patrolled the facility, issuing strict orders to keep quiet. Then came the CEO himself. Dominic Tresh arrived in a sleek, black shuttle that bristled with top-tier defense systems. The man's reputation preceded him: ruthless, calculating, and utterly devoid of moral restraint. As he stepped onto the colony's main deck, his sharp gaze scanned the chaos with an air of quiet satisfaction. "I understand we've made a game-changing discovery," he said, addressing a tense crowd of scientists and miners. His voice was smooth, commanding, and carried just enough menace to stifle dissent. Arya was unimpressed. She knew Tresh's kind well. To him, the shard wasn't an enigma to be understood, it was a tool to be exploited. During a private meeting, Tresh pressed her for answers. "What are we dealing with here, Vega?" he asked, his tone clipped. "It's not that simple," she replied, maintaining her composure. "The shard isn't just emitting energy, it's interacting with us. It's showing people futures, possible futures. That suggests some kind of intelligence behind it." Tresh leaned forward, his expression darkening. "Intelligence we can control?" "I don't think so. This could be a warning, or even a test. If we—" Tresh cut her off with a dismissive wave. "I'm not interested in vague hypotheses. Can it be weaponized?" Arya's silence was answer enough. Before she could argue, Tresh made his decision. "You'll report directly to me from now on. No more sharing data with your team. And for God's sake, Vega, keep your personal theories to yourself. Humanity doesn't survive on philosophy, it survives on dominance." Later that night, as Arya reviewed her data in secret, the shard pulsed again. This time, it wasn't just a vision. The air in her lab shimmered, and for a fleeting moment, she felt the presence of something vast and unknowable watching her. Her instinct was clear: whatever the shard was, Apex Dynamics couldn't be trusted with it. The colony became a fortress overnight. Armed guards patrolled every corridor, and access to the shard was restricted to only a handful of personnel. Dominic Tresh moved quickly, installing Apex Dynamics' most advanced research modules around the containment chamber. The message was clear: the shard was now the property of Apex, and any interference would be dealt with harshly. Dr. Arya Vega worked under constant surveillance. Cameras tracked her every move, and Tresh's enforcers loomed outside her lab at all hours. Despite this, she continued her covert analysis, her gut warning her that the shard was far more dangerous than Tresh realized. The anomalies worsened. Entire sections of the colony reported time distortions, watches stopped or sped up, and machinery faltered inexplicably. A miner disappeared entirely, only to reappear 3 hours later claiming he'd seen Earth in ruins, overrun by shadowy figures. Even the guards, hardened professionals, began to show cracks in their resolve. Meanwhile, Tresh's agenda unfolded with terrifying precision. The shard was hooked into a prototype weapon, a device designed to create focused gravitational anomalies. A planetary destabilizer, Tresh called it with a chilling smile during a briefing. The weapon's intended purpose was clear: to subdue any opposition during humanity's inevitable expansion into the stars. "We don't just explore the galaxy, Doctor," Tresh explained, pacing before a holographic display of the device. "We conquer it. The shard will give us that edge. Imagine a future where Earth isn't just a part of the galaxy, it's its ruler." Arya held her tongue, though fury burned in her chest. The shard wasn't theirs to wield, let alone weaponize. Yet Tresh's ambition seemed boundless, and he dismissed her warnings as scientific overthinking. It was during one of these weapon tests that everything began to unravel. Tresh insisted on a live demonstration to prove the weapon's potential. Using a smaller asteroid as the target, the shard's energy was channeled into a focused beam. At first, the results seemed promising. The asteroid fractured under the gravitational pull. But then the feedback hit. A massive shockwave rippled through the colony, shutting down systems and flinging personnel against walls. Lights flickered, and a haunting hum filled the air. Arya's instruments went haywire, detecting energy surges far beyond the shard's earlier activity. In the aftermath, a containment breach alarm blared. The shard, now glowing violently, had cracked its containment housing. The air around it shimmered like a heat haze, distorting the room. As Trash's engineers scrambled to fix the damage, Arya noticed something horrifying. The shard was broadcasting a signal, stronger and clearer than before. "What have you done?" Arya demanded, storming into the control room where Trash stood, his confidence shaken but intact. "Progress," he snapped, though his voice faltered. "We've woken it up." "No," Arya whispered, staring at the live feed of the shard. "We've triggered something. And now, whatever sent it knows we're here." As if in response, a distant tremor shook the colony, followed by a low, unearthly rumble. It wasn't coming from the asteroid. It was coming from space. The rumble grew louder, a sound that wasn't just heard but felt deep in the chest, as if the universe itself was growling. Lights across the colony flickered and dimmed, plunging the facility into an eerie half-darkness. Arya Vega stood frozen in the control room, watching the shard's live feed, its glow intensified, pulsing with an almost frantic rhythm, as though signaling something far beyond human comprehension. Then the first visual anomaly appeared. On the edge of the asteroid field, the blackness of space twisted and coalesced, as if it were folding in on itself. A shape emerged, metallic, impossibly sleek, and vast. The object dwarfed the colony's structures, casting long shadows over the asteroid's surface. It was unlike anything human eyes had ever seen, an enormous automaton with glowing blue seams running across its silver hull. Arya's instruments went wild, picking up gravitational fluctuations and energy signatures that spiked off the charts. "What the hell is that?" Eric Cast's voice broke over the intercom. He was stationed near the outer perimeter, his tone panicked. "It just appeared out of nowhere." "It's a sentinel," Arya murmured, piecing it together as her mind raced. "A guardian of some kind. The shard's signal brought it here." Trash stormed into the control room, his face pale, but his eyes burning with determination. "It doesn't matter what it is," he said sharply. "We have the shard. This thing's just another obstacle." Before Arya could stop him, Trash ordered his armed drones to engage. From the Sentinel, a low hum resonated, building into a deafening crescendo. The massive machine moved with unnerving fluidity, its elongated arms extending to deploy glowing, translucent shields. The colony's automated drones fired, their projectiles dissipating harmlessly against the Sentinel's defenses. It responded with surgical precision, unleashing beams of light that disintegrated the drones midair. "This isn't a fight we can win," Arya shouted, turning to Trash. "You need to stand down. We don't understand what it wants." Trash glared at her, his arrogance intact. "I don't care what it wants. We're Apex Dynamics, and we don't run from a fight." But the battle wasn't going in Apex's favor. The Sentinel wasn't merely defending itself, it was analyzing the colony. Every action felt deliberate, every strike precise. Arya's monitors lit up with data streams as the Sentinel scanned the shard's containment area. She suddenly understood. "It's not here to destroy us," she said aloud. "It's evaluating us." The Sentinel turned its glowing gaze toward the main colony building, where the shard was housed. A pulse of energy rippled outward, and the ground beneath the colony trembled violently. Machinery short-circuited, and alarms blared as containment protocols failed completely. The shard erupted in a dazzling burst of light, and for a moment, the entire facility felt suspended in time. Arya collapsed to her knees as visions flooded her mind, ancient worlds, civilizations rising and falling, and a singular, crystalline voice that echoed in her thoughts. "Prove yourselves." The light faded, leaving behind silence. The Sentinel loomed closer, its intent unmistakable. Humanity's test had begun. The aftermath of the Sentinel's arrival shattered any semblance of order in the colony. Apex's forces, already strained, split into factions, those loyal to Tresh's vision of dominance, and others who believed his arrogance would doom them all. Fear rippled through the ranks, feeding chaos as every individual struggled to reconcile the impossible, a machine of incomprehensible power judging their species. In the command center, Tresh's frustration boiled over. Re-establish containment protocols, he barked at his technicians, and bring that damned shard under control. It's not responding, a technician stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. The shard's energy output is unstable. It's syncing with the Sentinel. Tresh slammed his fist against the console. Then decouple it. Sever the connection. Aria Vega, watching from the corner of the room, spoke up, her voice cold and steady. You don't get it, do you? That connection isn't just technological. The shard and the Sentinel are linked by purpose. You try to sever that, and you'll trigger a disaster we can't contain. Tresh glared at her but didn't respond. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. Elsewhere, a growing group of dissenters quietly organized under Carter Hayes, a rogue engineer who had once been a rising star at Apex before becoming disillusioned with its ruthless policies. Hayes had seen enough. Tresh doesn't care about survival, Hayes told the small crowd gathered in a dim maintenance bay. He cares about control. He'll push this colony, and humanity, into the abyss if we let him. We need to take the shard and find a way to end this test. How? A miner asked, his voice trembling. That thing out there, it tore through our drones like paper. What are we supposed to do against something like that? Hayes glanced at Aria, who had joined the group in secret. We don't fight it, we communicate. The room fell silent. Communicate? Another voice snapped. With what? A goddamn alien death machine. It's not here to kill us, Aria insisted. If it wanted us dead, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The Sentinel isn't testing our strength, it's testing our understanding, our unity. Unity, however, was in short supply. The factions within the colony deepened. Tresh fortified his control over the shard's chamber, doubling the guard detail, and installing fail-safe explosives in case of sabotage. Meanwhile, the dissenters prepared to act. The Sentinel remained motionless outside the colony, an unyielding giant that radiated quiet menace. Its glowing seams pulsed in sync with the shard, a constant reminder of the link between them. Then came the visions. Every person in the colony experienced it at once, a flash of humanity's potential futures. One path showed a golden age, with humanity reaching the stars united, driven by exploration and cooperation. The other was far darker, endless war, extinction, and ruin wrought by greed and hubris. When the visions faded, the colony's divisions were starker than ever. Some sided with Tresh, convinced humanity's survival depended on strength and dominance. Others rallied behind Hayes and Aria, determined to prove humanity's worth through understanding and unity. The colony was a powder keg, and the Sentinel's gaze never wavered. It waited, unflinching, as humanity's test fractured them further. The colony teetered on the brink of collapse. Tresh's forces fortified their stronghold around the shard, erecting barricades and deploying automated turrets. Meanwhile, Hayes' growing rebellion worked in shadows, coordinating their next move. At the center of it all, the Sentinel remained an ominous presence, unmoving but alive with purpose. Its glowing seams pulsed in rhythm with the shard, as if counting down to an inevitable conclusion. In the bowels of the colony, Aria Vega stood before a makeshift holoscreen, surrounded by the key members of the rebellion. This isn't just a test of survival, she explained, pointing to a map of energy patterns emanating from the shard and the Sentinel. The shard is broadcasting, not just to the Sentinel, but to something much larger. It's creating a network, a web of communication that stretches far beyond this asteroid. What does that mean for us? Carter Hayes asked, his brow furrowed. Aria hesitated, the weight of her words evident. If we fail this test, it won't just end here. The Sentinel will broadcast our failure, and whatever is on the other end of this network will judge all of humanity unworthy. The room fell silent. The stakes were clear now. This wasn't just about the colony or even the shard. It was about humanity's place in the cosmos. We need a plan, Hayes said firmly. Arya nodded. The Sentinel isn't our enemy. It's an observer, a guardian. But Tresh's attempts to weaponize the shard are escalating the situation. If we're going to pass this test, we need to stop Tresh and show the Sentinel what humanity is truly capable of. How? A miner asked nervously. We don't have the firepower to take him on. We don't need firepower, Arya replied. We need unity. The rebellion's plan, dubbed the Unity Gambit, hinged on one key move: reactivating the shard's dormant subharmonic frequencies. Arya had discovered these frequencies during her research. They resonated with human brainwaves, amplifying emotions and intentions. If they could harness the shard's energy and broadcast a unified message, they might demonstrate to the Sentinel that humanity could overcome its divisions. But first, they needed access to the shard, which meant going through Tresh. The rebellion launched their operation at dawn. Sabotaging the colony's outer defenses, they created a distraction to lure Tresh's forces away from the shard's chamber. Arya and Hayes led a small team through maintenance tunnels, bypassing checkpoints and surveillance systems. When they reached the containment chamber, they found Tresh waiting for them, flanked by his elite guards. You really think you can stop me? Tresh sneered, his voice cold and venomous. The shard is humanity's key to dominance. I won't let a bunch of idealists throw that away. It's not about dominance, Arya said, stepping forward. It's about proving we deserve to exist. If you keep fighting, we all lose. Tresh's face twisted in anger. You're naive, Vega. Humanity only survives by crushing anything that stands in its way. As he raised a weapon, the shard suddenly pulsed brighter than ever, silencing everyone. The Sentinel outside shifted for the first time, turning its massive gaze toward the chamber. The test had reached its apex. The shard's pulse resonated throughout the colony, its light cutting through the tension like a blade. For a moment, no one moved. Tresh's guards, trained to react to any threat, stood frozen. Even Tresh himself hesitated as the shard's energy rippled across the room, filling the air with a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate in their very bones. Then the Sentinel moved. Outside, the colossal automaton unfolded its limbs, its glowing seams brightening. With fluid precision, it extended a single arm, aiming directly at the shard's containment chamber. The ground trembled as a beam of concentrated light pierced through the facility's outer layers, stopping just short of the shard. Inside the chamber, a holographic projection erupted from the shard, a swirling display of stars, planets, and alien symbols. Arya stared at it, awe and dread battling within her. It's communicating, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Tresh, unwilling to relinquish control, raised his weapon again. This is my operation. I won't let some alien relic decide our fate. Stop, Arya shouted, stepping in front of him. You can't fight it. You'll doom us all. Tresh's finger hovered over the trigger, but before he could fire, the shard pulsed again. The energy wave knocked him and everyone else in the room to the ground. Arya felt a strange warmth as the wave passed through her, followed by a flood of images and emotions. She saw Earth, not as it was, but as it could be. Cities that blended seamlessly with nature, vast starships carrying humanity into uncharted galaxies. People of every nation, united in purpose and curiosity. But then the vision shifted. She saw another future, a bleak, fractured Earth consumed by war, its skies blackened, its surface barren. Above it loomed shapes like the Sentinel, but these were darker, colder, and far less merciful. The shard's judgment was clear. Humanity's fate hung in the balance. When the visions faded, Arya turned to find Tresh struggling to stand, his face pale and shaken. For the first time, the man who had seemed invincible now looked small, uncertain. "You saw it too," Arya said, her tone firm but not unkind. Tresh's lips tightened. What was that?" "Our future," Arya replied, "and the shard is giving us a choice." Before Tresh could respond, the sentinel outside acted. Its beam shifted, enveloping the chamber in light. The shard lifted from its containment, floating in the center of the room. "It's waiting," Arya said, realization dawning. "For what?" Hayes asked. "For us to decide," Arya answered. The shard's glow dimmed slightly, and the alien symbols on the hologram rearranged into something almost legible. It was offering them one final chance: unity or annihilation. As the room fell silent, the weight of the decision pressed down on them all. Humanity's fate rested not in weapons or power, but in their ability to set aside their differences and stand as one. The light from the shard illuminated the chamber, its glow now steady, almost patient. The silence that enveloped the room was deafening. Arya stood before it, her heart racing, every part of her mind focused on the gravity of the moment. The choice had been laid bare: unite or perish. Tresh, still reeling from the visions, finally dropped his weapon. His hands trembled as he stepped back, the realization sinking in. This isn't what I imagined," he muttered. "We were supposed to control it, use it to dominate." Arya turned to face him, her voice calm yet resolute. "Dominance is a path that leads to destruction. The shard showed us two futures, one where we unite, and one where we fall apart. It's not about power. It's about what we choose to be." Tresh opened his mouth as if to protest, but the words died on his lips. He looked down at the floor, his shoulders slumping as the weight of the vision crushed his defiance. The room's tension was palpable as the rebellion, the loyalists, and the Apex enforcers all watched, uncertain of what the next step would be. But no one moved. The sentinel outside remained a towering sentinel of judgment, but there was no aggression in its posture. It stood, waiting, its purpose clear: to witness humanity's decision. Arya stepped forward and extended her hand to Hayes, who had remained silent throughout. Hayes, the once idealistic engineer, nodded grimly and reached out to take it. The gesture was simple, but it spoke volumes. It was a sign of cooperation, of understanding. The unity they needed to show had to start with them. "Let's do it," Hayes said quietly, his voice filled with a rare conviction. Together, they approached the shard. Arya placed her hand near it, and slowly, hesitantly, Hayes followed. The light pulsed again, this time softer, more welcoming. The energy swirled around them, and for a moment, it felt as if the entire colony held its breath. The others watched in awe as the shard responded. Slowly, holographic images began to emerge from it again, this time showing not just alien symbols, but complex patterns of human achievements: space exploration, world peace, ecological restoration, and the coming together of disparate cultures. It was a vision of what humanity could become, a species not bound by division, but by shared purpose. The rebel and loyalist factions watched as one. There were no barriers anymore, no walls of distrust between them. They were united in the face of the decision they had to make. It was clear to them now. They were no longer subjects of a test, but participants in their own future. Then, the Sentinel's presence shifted. It no longer stood as a cold, calculating observer, but a silent participant in their decision. The rays of light surrounding the shard grew stronger, and for the first time since its arrival, the Sentinel lowered its arm, its gaze no longer fixed upon them with judgment, but with acceptance. A soft hum filled the room, and the energy that had been coursing through the colony began to stabilize. The anomalies ceased. The tension in the air lifted. Humanity had made its choice. The future, unknown and uncertain, was theirs to shape. Arya exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the decision lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she allowed herself a glimpse of hope. The journey had just begun, but it was no longer a journey of survival or conquest. It was a journey of unity, and of a new age for humanity. And in that moment, as the light from the shard dimmed to a steady glow, Arya knew that whatever the universe threw at them, humanity was ready.